Could Chase Young resurrect his career with the New Orleans Saints? It was only a start on this Monday, but it was an intriguing one for the former number two pick. We'll talk about his outlook with the Saints and what he's shown at training camp right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome back inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosvoglu, and as always, we're brought to you by Scott Fickner, Injury Lawyers, and by Crystal. As always, if you like our content, make sure to like and subscribe to Boot Crew Media's YouTube channel. It greatly helps us out, and we appreciate it. So the Saints resumed training camp on this Monday. The pads went on for the first time, which is really where you get to get that intensity into practice. It really goes up a notch, and for the Saints, this was the day of Chase Young. There wasn't a lot of reps during the team period of him, only 3 to be exact, but he made a huge impact off the rip. And Dennis Allen even joked with the media that he got a little too close to his quarterbacks for his liking, which is a great sign for Chase Young. I know some people are going to be like, well, what the hell does that mean about the Saints offensive line? We could worry about that another day. For right now, I want to focus just strictly on Chase Young and his outlook with the Saints. When the Saints signed him, that was the biggest move of the offseason for them. And it kind of took an immediate hit when you found out that he was going to need neck surgery. And obviously the concerns were what was his status going to be for week 1 and all that. But we found out this past weekend that he was fully cleared for practice, which is obviously great news. And then Dennis Allen pretty much said today that the whole ramp up process for Chase Young has really gone smoothly, and he got better news than he anticipated earlier. So everything seems to be clicking in the right direction for him. And obviously for Chase Young to have a strong practice today, to see him learning a little bit from Cam Jordan, who, yeah, at this stage in Cam Jordan's career, he's no longer an elite player, but maybe there are pointers that will help a guy like Chase Young realize his full potential. And for Chase, I think this is interesting. It's such a weird spot that he's in so early in his career, because a couple of years ago, you would think that this man was destined for stardom, right? I mean, he wins Rookie of the Year with Washington, looks really good. And then the injuries happen, and he never really gets to that full spot. And I thought maybe with the 49ers last season, you would see him get back to that, but it never really materialized to that degree. And some people worried about the motor. I worried about the motor, especially when he didn't look like himself in the NFC Championship game. And then you find out the man was kind of going through a neck injury the entire season. And even then, he showed out in the Super Bowl. So to be in New Orleans, you're on a 1-year contract. There's a lot of a lot of money tied into you actually playing. So there is the incentive to be available. I think it's interesting. The Saints need a defensive lineman. There's no question about it. Their pass rush is not in the upper echelon of the NFL's best pass rushes. He needs to find a permanent home. He needs to find some long-term security. This could be similar to the Nick Fairley situation. And I know Nick Fairley's situation unfortunately got hampered by injuries, so that's maybe not the best analogy that I could put it. But the reason I bring up Nick Fairley is Nick Fairley was always a talented defensive player. And even in Detroit, you saw those flashes with him. And then when he went to the Saints, he really hit full stride. And unfortunately, the injuries cut short what could have been a really promising run between Fairley and the Saints. But Chase Young has shown that he can be good. Injuries have hurt him. And now he has a new opportunity on a defensive-minded first team to really revitalize himself. And for Chase, you don't really have to worry about age. I mean, the guy's still just 25 years old. He's been around the block for a while now, but at 25 years old, you still have a lot of time and a lot of mileage left on that body for him to really figure it out. So for him to go out there Monday, have a strong session in training camp with the pads on, obviously that's ideal. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say if the Saints are able to get a motivated, healthy version of Chase Young, and that might be a huge if, but if they get that player, you will change the way you look at the Saints defensive line. Because right now, you look at the Saints defensive line from a pass rush standpoint, you like what Carl Granderson did last year, and you expect him to build on that. You like what Brian Brzee did last year, you expect on him to build on that. What else are you expecting, though? I think Isaiah Foskey has taken nice strides this offseason, but that doesn't mean he's going to be good this year. Peyton Turner, nobody's depending on him to play a single game. And if you are, you're a fool. Like, it's just, he has not shown that he could stay on the field, so why should we expect it? And Cam Jordan, yeah, maybe he'll still play well in the run defense, but you can't expect him to be a nightmare for opposing offenses from a pass rushing standpoint. So you kind of cross him off the list as well. Chase Young, if he ends up playing to a level that he's capable of, all of a sudden you got 3 guys on the defensive line from a pass rushing standpoint, 2 on the outside, 1 on the interior that you can trust. And all of a sudden you say, oh shit, maybe the Saints have something that they can get rolling there. And you don't expect New Orleans to be some dynamic offense. I expect Kubiak to get them better, but you don't expect them to be some dynamic offense out of the gates. Their best chance of being a competitive team this year probably relies on their defense. And if your pass rush gets cooking, you have the talent in the secondary. We know that. And obviously, you have one of the best middle linebackers in the game, Demario Davis. That is a formula that you can grind out victories. It might not be pretty. It might not be the football Saints fans want to see, but that might be the formula where Dennis Allen can grind out some wins here and there to keep this team afloat till they get to the easier part of their schedule. And again, I'm looking ahead right now, and maybe that's stupid of me to do so, but that's how I feel about Chase Young. I feel like he is the type of player that the talent is there. It's a question of motivation. It's a question of availability. And if those two boxes are checked off, and we know that the motivation box will be checked off this year, the Saints could have something here. And again, I will never fault them for the contract they did because it was only 1 year. I was worried about making a long-term security long-term commitment to a guy that hasn't really shown much the last couple of years, but to just do 1 year, if it doesn't work out, you don't really get burnt in the end. If it works out, all of a sudden you feel like a genius. So we'll see what happens with Chase Young, but Monday was a good start for him. He's got to build off that, but he's also got to stay healthy. And right now, all those arrows are pointing up, and you don't really want to jinx anything because when it comes to injuries, us Saints fans know that anytime you get a little bit of confidence in this team, in the health of this team, you check your phone like 2 minutes later and you get like 55 fucking alerts that 6 guys are out and 2 are questionable and 7 are done for the year and whatever the hell it may be. So you don't want to go down that road. I get that. But Chase Young, promising start to the padded session of training camp. And now we're just hoping he stays healthy and the arrow continues to go up. So we'll see what happens with Chase Young. But if he is healthy, what are your expectations for him this season? You give me a number in terms of how many sacks you think he may get. You might give me your thoughts on what he does for this team in terms of the overall outlook, win total. Let me know in the comment section below, and I will get back to you. As always, guys, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And until then, we'll be back with more content from the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.